Hi, everybody. Welcome to Talking with Tundra. This is our virtual ALA Midwinter session. And although I really look forward to ALA, standing in the booth, hearing about what you're reading, and talking about our books, that's something we can't do this year. And there is something nice about doing it virtually, including having tea this whole time. So I hope you have a tea and some snacks. My name is Vicki Van Sickle. I'm the Director of Marketing and Publicity for Tundra Books. We have 3 imprints, Tundra Books, Puffin Canada, and Penguin Teen Canada. Our books feature authors and illustrators from around the world. Our publishing and marketing and publicity teams are located in Canada, but our books are sold across North America by the Random House Children's Group. So wherever you buy your Random House Children's Group, that is your same sales force for the books you're going to see in this presentation. I'm actually going to go off video because we've included a lot of the interior spreads from the art. And one of the things we really pride ourselves with at Tundra Books is our dedication to illustration and art. And I would rather you look at those slides than at my face. So without further ado, we're going to start off with board books. First up, we have a new direction for Narwhal and Jelly, who will be starring in their own original board book series. Bubbles and Blanky feature the same lovable, upbeat characters in a new format that is perfect for the youngest readers. These board books celebrate the imagination as Narwhal and Jelly explore the many uses of a Blanky and the wonder of bubbles. The original format Narwhal and Jelly books have now surpassed 2 million books in print and reached another major milestone this fall when Happy Narwhalidays landed on the New York Times bestseller list for the first time. We think this is both a great introduction to the series and also a nice extension for the kids who can't get enough of Narwhal and Jelly's sweet and silly puns. Next up, we have picture books. Tundra is perhaps best well known for our beautiful picture books. We have authors and illustrators from around the world. We have own voices creators, and we have lots of things you're going to love. So first up, we have, and I'm going to go off camera so you can see the beautiful art for this. Speaking of art, our first book is Outside Art by Madeline Klopper. Our next book is a great winter pick featuring woodland creatures in a snowy Pacific Northwest setting. In Rising Star Madeline Klopper's picture book, a cast of animals watches a human putting colors on a board using a furry stick. Pine Martin learns from Chickadee that human is actually an artist and is busy making art. But what is art? Soon, all of the animals in the forest are wondering, why is human doing this? Is it a warning? Is it looking for a mate? Is there any meaning at all? And if human can make art, why can't the animals do it too? This is a subtle celebration of art in the natural world, perfectly positioned for classroom use. We're creating an activity sheet and resources that encourage similar explorations into the art and the outdoors. Next up, we have 10 Little Dumplings by Larissa Fan, illustrated by Cindy Woon. If one son is lucky, then 10 must be great luck indeed. But where does that leave an only daughter? Based on a true family story, this inspiring picture book about a different perspective tells the tale of a girl determined to be seen, who finds her own voice and makes her own luck. 10 Little Dumplings is the first picture book by Larissa Fan, who is in fact a sister of the Fan brothers. Based on a short film made by the author and inspired by her father's family in Taiwan, 10 Little Dumplings looks at some unhappy truths about the place of girls in our world in an accessible, inspiring, and hopeful way. One of the clever aspects of this book is that the narrator is present, though hidden, on every page, illustrating the feeling of being the daughter in a family of 10 brothers. If you look closely on this slide, you can see her arm peeking out there off to the side. This story has many curriculum connections, including feminism, folklore, historical and cultural context, and is a perfect pick for Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. We'll be creating an activity sheet to encourage classroom adoption, and we're working on a fun felted dumpling craft with the author. This next picture book also has a message of female empowerment and falls under a category we like to call Women You Should Know. Written by an award-winning Aquanaut and with art by a #1 New York Times best-selling illustrator, this inspiring picture book encourages readers to explore their world, build their self-esteem, and imagine what they can do and become when they grow up. Author Jill Heinrich is one of very few female cave divers and was inspired to write this book to encourage children to follow their hearts and forge new paths for themselves. This is not a biography, and Jamie Kim's luminous art transports readers back and forth through time to see how Jill's imagination as a young girl laid the pathway to her accomplishments and experiences as an underwater explorer. So here you can see her as a young child imagining new worlds. And here you can see where that dream led her, to underwater exploration as an adult. We love Jamie Kim's art, and every spread of this book could be a poster. Curriculum connections include oceans, diving, exploration, and International Women's Month, and also look for a resource that will be available for kids and families to use as well. Maya's Big Scene is the third book in the Mile End Kids series, featuring a group of kids in Montreal's Mile End neighborhood. The kids in these books have been compared to a contemporary Peanuts gang or a Montreal-style Sesame Street. Each book follows one of the kids in the neighborhood, and this time, it's Maya's time to shine. Maya is an aspiring playwright, director, and basically queen of all she surveys. But Maya's enthusiasm for control and exacting standards could derail her latest production, a feminist revolutionary piece. This is a great story about learning to be a good leader while never diminishing Maya's leadership skills. This picture book is told in graphic novel style panels with speech bubbles, making it a sort of picture book graphic novel hybrid. You do not need to read the Mile End Kids books in any particular order, but once you've read them, you'll want to read them all. Next up, we have The Secret Fawn by Callie George and illustrated by Ellie McKay. Gorgeous cut paper art illuminates this sweet, heartfelt picture book about how special being little can be. The Secret Fawn is a beautiful ode to spring and the natural world and has already received a starred review from Kirkus, a notoriously difficult review medium. Ellie McKay's cut paper art, which is carefully arranged in a paper theater and then lit to spectacular effect, brings the story about a little girl who goes searching for a deer in the woods vividly to life. This is also a book about the frustrations of being the smallest and the youngest and the fear that you're missing out on everything, something kids can relate to. But in the end, the narrator learns that there are also good things about being the smallest and the youngest and is rewarded with her own private experience with nature. Speaking of spring animals, we have the extremely cute true story of how one family adopted a baby lamb. An adorable and rascally lamb is the latest addition to the family in the sweet picture book. This is a fresh take on the pet adoption story, and the art and text are simple enough for the youngest reader, though there are lots of seasonal connections, including baby animals, spring, and pet responsibility. This is based on the author-illustrator's true story, and photos of the real Albert are included in the back of the book. It is very hard for us all not to squee and make unintelligible cute noises when looking at this book. We'll create an activity sheet for this, and it's also available on NetGalley, as most of our picture books are right now. Next up, we have Anonymous, and if that author's name looks familiar, it's because she or I have just spent the last few minutes talking to you. Anonymous is my third picture book, and I could not be more excited about it. Animal-friendly street art is popping up all over the city, but who is creating these masterpieces? There's no explanation, only a name: Anonymous. This book, which I used to call Mouse Banksy in my early drafts, grew out of my love for public art and concern for wild animals living in urban spaces. I had a lot of fun exploring my own city and scouring the internet for different examples of public art that we could pay homage to in the book. Illustrator Anna Paroli did an amazing job bringing the various murals and art to life. Some of them are quite silly, some of them more philosophical, and she nailed every single spread. I consider myself extremely fortunate to have worked with her. We will be creating some fun learning resources for people to use this, especially in conjunction possibly with outside art when talking about art in the natural world. Next up is I Do Not Like Yolanda by Zoe Abbott. Bianca likes stamps and writing letters and going to the post office. She does not like Yolanda, who works there. This is a relatable story about facing your fears and giving people a second chance for fans of Miss Nelson is Missing and My Teacher is a Monster. We were quite taken with the childlike voice and perspective of this book, which felt bang onto us. We know that sometimes kids get fears or anxieties in their minds that can feel baseless, but are still scary nevertheless. What I love about the resolution in this story is that no adults swoop in to tell Bianca what to do. She decides to address her fears on her own, and she does so in a very positive, empathetic way. asking Yolanda about herself. This is not only a book about overcoming anxiety, but about being kind and giving people a second chance. We're looking forward to creating some fun stamp making and mail-related activities for this, something that we think as we go into the second year of the pandemic will be very useful for families, classrooms, and kids. Next up, we have Mr. Mole Moves In by Leslie Ann Green. Mr. Mole is new in town, and the critters of Juniper Hollow aren't sure what to make of his odd behavior. But one observant neighbor lends a helping hand, demonstrating that a little kindness can go a long way. This cozy story features adorable felted art and gentle situational humor. I wish that I could show you every spread of this cozy little book so I could point out the incredible detail in the handmade sets and felted critters. We went behind the scenes at Leslie Ann's studio for one of our Tundra Illustrator Studio videos, which you can check out online on YouTube or at our homepage. In addition to having major crafter and DIY appeal, this is a sweet story about kindness. All of the critters of Juniper Hollow are patient with Mr. Mole and go out of their way to help out, even if his actions are a tad strange. After all, in Juniper Hollow, a stranger is a friend you haven't yet met. Tough Like Mum by Lana Button and illustrated by Carmen Mock. What does it mean to be tough? Kim finds out in this moving mother-daughter story about family hardship, vulnerability, and love, perfect for fans of Dolly Parton's Coat of Many Colors. This book takes a sensitive look at the reality of many children who are living with economic uncertainty. Kim lives with her single mother. The power has been turned off in their apartment, and Kim doesn't always have a warm hat or the money for a school field trip. But what she does have is a loving mother, and the two of them learn what it means to be tough and vulnerable. Author Lana Button is an educator, and her previous books look at contemporary issues that children face, including shyness and bullying. She is perfectly positioned to tell this story with sensitivity and empathy. We will create resources to help position this book in the classroom and in libraries and for families as well. Next up, we have a unique book previously published by Kaoma Press. In A Cat Named Tim and Other Stories by John Martz, we have an anthology of 4 mostly wordless stories, and every character is colorful and cool, and every page is an adventure. In Tim's world, cats can paint on the ceiling, and a duck and a mouse can fly. In a plane, of course. This is a true tribute to the imagination. With few words and a loose, goofy narrative, A Cat Named Tim encourages young readers to develop their ability to interpret stories and images without text. John Martz is not only an acclaimed creator in the kids' book and comic book worlds, having earned fantastic reviews and a Governor General Award nomination for his work not once, but twice. He's also been a contributor to Mad Magazine, and he's also Tundra's art director and a tastemaker in both communities. We feel very lucky to have him on our list. Next up, we have On the Trapline by David A. Robertson and illustrated by Julie Flett. This is a picture book celebrating Indigenous culture and traditions. The Governor General award-winning team behind When We Were Alone shares a story that honors our connections to our past and our grandfathers and fathers. A boy and Mosham, his grandpa, take a trip together to visit a place of great meaning to Mosham. A trapline is where people hunt and live off the land, and it was where Mosham grew up. Along the way, the boy finds himself imagining what life was like 2 generations ago, a life that appears to be both different and similar to his life now. This is a heartfelt story about memory, imagination, and intergenerational connection that perfectly captures the experience of a young child's wonder as he is introduced to places and stories that hold meaning for his family. The author and illustrator share their personal connections to the story in the back matter, and young readers are also introduced to Cree words throughout the story. Now, for my greatest 180 in this entire presentation, we have something totally different. Who's Pooh by Daisy Bird and illustrated by Mariana Capo, an irreverent picture book about everyone's favorite taboo subject, poo. A trip to the zoo inspires 2 baby rats to wonder about the kinds of poo in the world. Head chefs, balloon sellers, blue whales, everyone and everything must have a unique poo. Finally, Daddy Rat has had enough and is forced to sit down and explain the facts to his curious kids. And when he thinks he may have gotten through to his youngsters, he encounters a surprising and smelly twist, which will have little rats everywhere laughing out loud. This book is pure, unadulterated irreverence from a fantastic picture book team. Daisy Bird is the pseudonym for Jackie Collis Harvey, the New York Times bestselling author of Red, A History of the Redhead. This is her first children's book, and she pairs very well with acclaimed illustrator Mariana Capo, whose books consistently receive starred reviews and sell all over the world. Her book Petra is one of our top-selling picture books. Next up, we have a quirky new offering from Tundra favorite Esme Shapiro. In Carol and the Pickle Toad, Carol is tired of listening to her bossy toad hat until a pigeon carries it away. This delightful picture book from Uko creator is a quirky and funny fable about overcoming self-doubt and finding your inner voice. For any reader who's doubted their own voice or talents, or felt like a bossy friend or family member is always drowning them out, Carol and the Pickle Toad is an inspiring invitation to listen to your inner voice and is a must-have addition to social emotional library collections. Esme's vibrant folk art has won her tons of accolades and recognition, and we think Carol is her best book yet. Her style, which you may recognize from Uko or Alma and the Beast, is quirky and instantly recognizable, and paired with unusual but emotionally resonant stories that kids and adults will love. Next, we have Eddie Darwin and the Four Pebble Problem by Lauren Saloy. Eddie Darwin and her famous father go for a walk to ponder life, science, and fairies. This is inspired by the real-life daughter of Charles Darwin. This is the follow-up to Lauren's debut When Emily Was Small, which is based on the writings of Emily Carr. We think that Lauren is on the cusp of creating a new genre in which she imagines the emotional lives of real-life historical figures. While this book is an imagined story, it is based on Charles Darwin's real-life daughter and his thinking track, which still exists at Down House. There will be a nonfiction spread to explain this at the end. Lauren's art is earthy and breathtaking, as you can see from this spread here, and the perfect match for her stories, which celebrate science and the beauty of the natural world. There's also a message of female empowerment here, as Eddie foils Charles's need for proof that fairies exist by countering that he can't prove that fairies don't exist. In the book, she isn't daunted by his age or wisdom. In real life, Eddie was an important editor and a contributor to Charles's work. Next up, we have another book that beautifully captures the magic of nature, Out into the Big Wide Lake by Parle Harbridge and illustrated by José Bizeon. An empowering and necessary picture book about a young girl with Down syndrome who gains confidence and independence through a visit with her grandparents. It's Kate's first time visiting her grandparents on her own at their lakeside home. She's nervous, but excited at the adventure ahead. She helps her grandfather with his grocery deliveries by boat, where she meets all the neighbors, including a very grumpy old man named Walter. But when her grandfather takes ill suddenly, it's up to Kate. But can she really make all those deliveries? She has to try. This is a sensitive portrayal of a differently abled character. Kate has Down syndrome and is treated with great respect and dignity. She faces the same fears and doubts as any other character and is universally relatable. Based on the author's sister, Kate is a lovable, brave, smart, and feisty character who will capture your heart in this gorgeous and moving story about facing fears and gaining independence. Next up, we have This Is Ruby by Sarah O'Leary and illustrated by Aaliyah Marley. Ruby is curious about her world and has big ideas about how it works. This is a delightful picture book celebration of science and creativity and a welcome companion to the beloved This Is Sadie. Ruby is always busy. She loves to make things, watch things grow, and figure out how things work with her dog, Teddy, by her side. And Ruby has lots of ideas about what she wants to be. Maybe an animal conservationist or an archaeologist. This Is Ruby celebrates creativity and curiosity through science-based play. Drawing on her heritage, illustrator Aaliyah Marley has depicted Ruby as a young girl of color growing up in Barbados, and her life in the Caribbean is alluded to in the art, making this a perfect example of Black girl magic and a must-have own voices pick. Constellation of the Deep by Benjamin Flau. This is a stylish picture book about an underwater quest for an elusive bioluminescent plant, perfect for young conservationists. The retro-inspired art is eye-catching and will appeal to children, hipsters, and fans of striking picture books. It also works as a guide for budding divers or seaside explorers and includes lists of important diving essentials as well as animals, mollusks, and corals one might encounter underwater. Constellation of the Deep is a standalone follow-up to the 2018's The Golden Glow, and like that book, will spark conversation about conservation. It has a subtle yet poignant message about the dangers of ocean dumping that will resonate with educators and eco-minded parents. Next up, we have an adorable import from Italy in the beginning of a fantastic new preschool series. What Does Little Crocodile Say? By Eva Montanari. A little crocodile explores the first day of preschool in this colorful, noisy book filled with sounds and new experiences, some wonderful, some not, that are sure to delight toddlers. In this charming book of sounds, a little crocodile experiences the highs and lows of preschool, ultimately enjoying their day, after a small meltdown, of course. Little ones will delight in the adorable illustrations and fun read aloud, and parents will delight in the sly humor and familiar emotional roller coaster of a toddler's day. The parent and child are not gendered in this book and are only referred to as Big Crocodile and Little Crocodile. The soft pencil art is welcoming and sweet, as well as being very funny and irresistibly cute. I am particularly taken by Elephant's polka dot pants, and the minute I saw this book, I knew I had a go-to first baby book. So next up, we have nonfiction. We are increasingly publishing more nonfiction, but we want to sort of include that Tundra feel of beautiful art, sometimes in a graphic novel style and sometimes in another style. But I think you'll appreciate the next few books that are both nonfiction and beautiful. Again, I'm going to go off video so you can enjoy the art. The first is How to Promenade with a Python and Not Get Eaten by Rachel Poliquin and illustrated by Catherine Durst. In this hilarious new graphic nonfiction series, a savvy cockroach shares wise tips and tricks for surviving an encounter with a charming predator who may or may not want to be your friend. Celeste, our narrator, is a cockroach, and everyone knows that cockroaches are survivors, so who better to give advice on surviving an encounter with a polite predator? Everyone also knows that taking a moonlit promenade with a deadly reticulated python named Frank is a very bad idea. But Celeste loves very bad ideas, and she's willing to put your life on the line to prove herself right. Using her superior Pythonian knowledge, Celeste comes up with various strategies and solutions, many dangerous, most absurd, but all based on the biology of pythons. Rachel is a nonfiction author with classroom experience who's known for her wonderfully quirky and clever approach. So many elements combined to make this book a winner. Weird but true facts, graphic novel style format, the meta style voice, the narrator's harebrained ideas, expressive characters, and more. This is the first in the series, and we're creating lots of materials for this to help you adapt it into classroom and library use. Butterflies are pretty gross. Warning, this book contains top secret information about butterflies. Prepare to be shocked and grossed out by this hilarious and totally true introduction to a fascinating insect. This hilarious and refreshing book with silly and sweet illustrations explores the science of butterflies and shows that these insects are not the stereotypically cutesy critters we often think they are. They are fascinating, disgusting, complicated, and amazing creatures. Kids will love to be grossed out, and this book contains some truly stinky facts. Author Rosemary Moscow has a background in natural science, and Jacob Suva's art jumps right off the page. This is a great book for schools and fans of Jess Keating's The World of Weird Animals series or Elise Gravel's Disgusting Critters, but it's also a fantastic read aloud for kids who are looking for a good belly laugh. Next up, we have graphic novels. We have one new exciting graphic novel to share this season, the very funny Simon & Chester Super Detectives by Cale Atkinson. A ghost and a kid team up to solve mysteries and kick butt. This is a hilarious new graphic novel series for fans of Bad Guys and Dogman. You may know Cale Atkinson from his hilarious picture books Unicorns 101 or The Day Santa Stopped Believing in Harold, and we're thrilled to be publishing Cale's first graphic novel. We first met Simon and Chester in the picture book Sir Simon Super Scarer, but Cale felt like this dynamic duo had a life beyond the picture book, and we totally agree. We think the 6 to 10 age range is Cale's sweet spot. His witty dialogue and sight gags are spot on for this age. It's hard to believe it's his very first graphic novel. It definitely won't be his last, as we have more books in this series signed up, with the next book publishing 6 months later in the fall. Moving on to chapter books. And speaking of lovable characters, MegaBat is back in his 4th adventure, MegaBat and the Not Happy Birthday. It's Daniel's birthday, and MegaBat wants to join in on all the fun, but his excitement gets the best of him, and suddenly the birthday celebrations are on the brink of disaster. The next Laugh Out Loud book in this sweet and funny chapter book series featuring a talking bat. The MegaBat books are major in-house favorites at Tundra, and they're also quickly becoming the go-to chapter book series for readers aged 6 to 10. The first book in this series recently won a major Reader's Choice Award in Canada, and we had a hugely successful event with the Junior Library Guild for the launch of the 3rd book last March. With 4 books now in the series, we think MegaBat is poised for a major breakout moment. Cass Reich's spot art adds to the sweet and silliness of the books, which have a Dory phantasmagory feel, but with a talking bat. Anxiety around birthday parties is a common theme and demonstrates how author Anna Humphrey, who by the way is a professional at school visits, is tapped into the minds and emotions of young readers. Moving on to middle grade. First up, we have Peter Lee's Notes from the Field by Angela Ahn and illustrated by Julie Kwan. 11-year-old Peter Lee has one goal in life, to become a paleontologist. But in one summer, that all falls apart. Told in short, accessible journal entries and combining the humor of Timmy Failure with the poignant family dynamics of Linda Mullally Hunt, Peter Lee is guaranteed to win readers' hearts. There is a lot to love in this contemporary middle grade story. It is an own voices story. Like the author, Peter is Korean Canadian, and his observations about the Korean side of his identity are funny and always affectionate. It's also a lovely multi-generational story. Peter has a close relationship with all of his family, including a very irritating little sister, and his grandparents, Hammy and Haji. Hammy is just beginning to show signs of dementia, a condition that many young readers will recognize in their own grandparents, and this is dealt with great sensitivity. And don't forget the dinosaur content, always a fan favorite, plus the spot art and the journal format, which parses the story out into easy to digest sections, perfect for the slightly young middle grade reader. Next, we have Alice Fleck's Recipes for Disaster by Rochelle Delaney. When Alice agrees to appear in a reality cooking show with her father, she has no idea she'll find herself in the middle of a mystery. Alice Fleck's father is a culinary historian, and for as long as she can remember, she's been helping him recreate meals from the past, a hobby she prefers to keep secret from kids her age. But when her father's new girlfriend enters them into a cooking competition at a Victorian festival, Alice finds herself and her hobby thrust into the spotlight. On arriving at the festival, Alice learns that she and her father are actually contestants on Culinary Combat, a new reality TV show hosted by the most famous and fierce judge on TV. And to make matters worse, she begins to suspect that someone is at work behind the scenes sabotaging the competition. It's up to Alice, with the help of a few new friends, to find the saboteur before the entire competition is ruined. There are so many fun hooks here, behind the scenes at a reality TV show, an old Victorian manor, a mystery, weird food facts, and more. Recently, there have been an increase in baking shows starring kids aimed at kids, such as MasterChef Junior, Chops Junior, Kids Baking Championship, etc. And this story will make readers feel they are there, right behind the scenes. Next up, we have The Serpent's Fury by Kelly Armstrong. This is the 3rd book in a royal guide to monster slaying. Rowan is Tamarel's royal monster hunter, and her twin brother Rid will be its king. After the events of the Griffin's Lair, Rowan, along with her friends, her brother, and an entourage of monstrous companions, makes her way back to the Dunnian Woods to deal with a pack of drop bears the group trapped in an abandoned cabin. The drop bears are just one of a number of rare monster species that have been acting erratically in the kingdom. After a swarm of Colocolos nearly tramples the group, Rowan becomes convinced that someone or something is driving these monsters out of their natural habitats, but nothing can prepare the royal monster hunter for the truth of the matter. This is top-notch epic fantasy with a major funny bone, and the first book made many best of the year lists when it first came out. Kelly Armstrong can write anything, and her foray into middle grade fiction proves to us why she is such a beloved, best-selling author with a devoted fan base. And our last book is our only young adult book in this section, and it is a doozy. Tell Me When You Feel Something is by Vicki Grant, and this is a book that I read in one sitting. Vicki Grant's YA thriller, Tell Me When You Feel Something, is Karen McManus meets Grey's Anatomy. It is a top-notch thriller set in a small town with ripped from the headlines themes and potential romance to boot. The perfect after-school job turns deadly for teens working as simulated patients at the local med school. Everyone has something to hide and no one is safe in this contemporary YA thriller that exposes the dark reality of Me Too and the world of medicine. The book is told from multiple points of view, which keeps you guessing up until the very end. Before writing this thriller, Vicki Grant was known for her sense of humor, something she honed in her craft as a screenwriter. Those comedy chops are on display in this book too, meaning there's truly something for everyone in this novel. I can't wait for more people to read it so we can start talking about it. Stat. So that's it from our books. Again, these are the books from Tundra that are publishing from January to June of 2021. We love to talk books, and there are many ways to contact us. You can find us at our website, which is www.tundrabooks.com. You can email us, or of course, look us up online. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed our books, and happy tea time. Bye, friends.